And if I'm looking down, bro, I'm just taking notes.
Yeah. You're just judging me,
not texting.
Virgo. I'm not meeting your high Virgoian standards. It's Pisces season, bitch. Loosen up a bit.
I know. I
Love is
am.
in the air. Oh, you're killing me, bro. That was so fucking good. Oh, I love it. That is the best Virgo joke ever. You've got that recorded, right? I want to show that to my friends later. Thank you. I am. Turns to your house and everything's just like in OCD order everywhere. Like
everything's color coded.
Oh God.
All
right, let's go.
Man, I'm not even gonna bother with an intro. I feel like I'm just gonna leave that start bit in and it'll roll from there. So
Perfect.
I mean, I want to jump in with a question that I know I asked you before, but I know a lot's changed for you since then, which is, can you describe the way you view yourself?
Fuck. I'll tell a little story about this because I'm such a, like, I don't like to put myself in a box or label myself. And even ironically, that can be a label in itself. And I don't like to necessarily try and be a rebel. I'm not trying to go against the grain, but naturally I go where that happens to be everywhere, which is against the grain because the grain's very confined. But I even went ahead and asked my friends this because I wanted to, create a personal brand and stuff. And they're saying like interdimensional space wizard and all these crazy ass things. I'm like, I'm just trying to learn a simple way to describe who I am and what I do to the world. So it's quite challenging to do, but how do I see is that the original question? How do I see myself?
Yeah, define how you view yourself.
How I view myself. Yeah, very free-spirited. And that's not just because like I'm trying to get anywhere. It's just because I'm such a deep thinker, it just has led to the conclusion of that's the best way to live. So I'm a deep thinker, I'm a teacher, I'm a healer, and I love to, like, my essence is helping people become more conscious so they can be themselves, essentially. Like, so how do I really struggle to put words, because that's just how I exist on a moment-to-moment basis.
So you said free-spirited. What do you mean by that?
Free spirit. So I'll kind of drop into the term being spiritual. People think being spiritual is like meditating and aligning your chakras and doing ceremonies. I believe we're all spirits. And just by being yourself, you're being spiritual by embracing your true nature. And my true nature is to be very curious and very explorative and very considerate of all things, and then to look at it with immense depth and understanding to make my own conclusions of things. So when I say free spirit, is because most people have been trained and domesticated through the schooling system, through being obedient to authorities, because that's, we will learn to listen to our parents, we learn to listen to our teachers, we learn to listen to our bosses. We learn to stay in a box, and those boxes bore the shit out of me. So free spirited for me is actually just not restraining where I want to go and who I want to be.
I love that. What about essence? What does that mean to you? You brought up that your essence is to help people. What do you mean by essence?
So we've got nature and nurture, right? Nature is like what I believe is our essence, but nurture is kind of who you've conditioned to become. So, how you learn to adapt to the environments you're brought up in, how you learn to fit in with the people around you, the culture that you're in. You try and be like the culture so you can earn love and all those kinds of things. That's your nature. Beneath all of that so that's your nurture. Beneath all of that is your nature, and that's just how you naturally are. That's just your expression. So when I say essence, it's like if you were to like blend me up into a blender and someone drank me, that would start to become a teacher and to want to be curious and learn more. That's my soul juice. It's like the expression of my spirit.
Soul juice.
It's my soul juice. Yes. Yeah. So, and my mission in life is to inject my soul juice into other people. Is to give them a little taste of that, because the world is missing. The world is missing connection to themselves. So now that I've been blessed enough to have experienced that, that's my essence is just like, guys, explore your essence,
I love that. I love how much of a goof you are, and you just drop in. Hey?
That's very offensive. I'm a very serious spiritual person.
I thought you were Pisces, bro. So we dropped in a little bit earlier and trying to find a topic that aligned for us, and one that really aligned, which was straight off the bat for me, because it's alive for me, is going from a place of showing up from the mind or ego or wanting or needing something, and instead showing up from the heart, and then I guess surrendering to, trusting, and allowing the release or relinquishment of what doesn't align with being in that place. So I'll let you take it away, man, and dive into where you're at and your experience with that.
Yeah, it's extremely powerful. And just before I drop into my own experience, I think that's the thing that most people wrestle with, right? They're trying to. We've been so taught to worship this. Like, if it's not evidence based, if it's not in science, then it's not true. And I like to say science is the new religion of the world. We moved from trusting mysticism, and now we all trust reason. But we're still clinging on to something. So people are clinging on to the mind at the moment. That's kind of the collective trap where most people are at. And even when we examine psychology, they're like, the brain is the seat of consciousness. Like, it's all about trying to balance the levels of serotonin and stuff in the brain, not realizing we have this entire body and being that we need to go to. So collectively, we're super conditioned to trust this more than everything else. And the thing is, if we were meant to be logical beings, we'd all be the same, because it'd be the most optimal logical conclusion that we're all supposed to adhere to, right? Because logic is logic. So you should all be like this out of logic. We don't make logical decisions. That's not how we operate. We operate from being guided by our emotions and our heart. And that's what's unique to us. And you can't take that away. But most people have been so, trained and domesticated to believe this, that it almost seems stupid. And how the hell can I trust this? Because it doesn't make sense to this, but this doesn't have the same capacity of our heart, and our heart knows on a deeper level. It's above our conscious pay grade, I like to say. Like, we're not supposed to know. That's why we need to learn to trust it. So that's kind of like an educational drop in on that. My own experience with this recently, I was with a girl, and she was the love of my life. I was with her for 5 years, and it was deep, and it was intense, and it was beautiful. And like, just to give you context, we're talking about engagement and children and the life that we're going to share together and everything. And the relationship wasn't working that well, but in my mind, I was fixed to that. I need to make this work because I love her. And I was so fixed to that idea that it was drowning out the voice of my heart. And what I like to say to people is, I was intoxicated or drunk on the idea of the relationship. I was hypnotized into needing that to be true so much that it actually disconnected me from my guidance. And that's a big trap that people fall into. They fall into, I should be this way as my identity. I need to hold on to this so strongly because I formed this identity, or I'm so committed to this that I think I need to, that I'm not going to even listen to other options because my mind has convinced me that this is the best way to be. And when we're too heavily invested into something like that, without connection to our heart, we can lose ourselves, because it may seem beautiful on paper. So beautiful, right? I'm going to share the rest of my life with this beautiful girl, but it no longer aligned with my heart. But I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe it at the time. And that actually, hurt me a lot, because we're in disconnected relationship for some time. Do I regret it at all? No. Like, the only way for me to learn that lesson so fully, I believe, was to go through the heartbreak of that and the pain of that, and for that to wake me up. But that's the start. So what we're saying, how to get out of the mind and listen to the heart, the main thing of that.
Yeah, I guess I want to jump in with a question there.
Yeah, go.
When you say you're drowning out the voice of your heart, what was the why behind that for you?
Yeah. There was the why was, I was so addicted to believing the story that she's the one, that I was listening to that above all other forms of feedback. So I still had a lot of love for her, but that my consciousness was so obsessed on trying to live into that narrative that other things they were in my shadow. I wasn't even aware of them, because I wanted to believe that to be true. So I invested so much into it.
Does that come from like watching your parents? Does that come from the way you're brought
An
up?
aspect of that? Yeah, my mom, like not to talk shit about my dad at all, but like my mom and dad, they had their fair share of arguments, and it got to the point where my mom was considering leaving my dad, but she has very strong Christian values, Catholic values. I need to stay with him no matter what. And at the same time, man, I love her so much, and I hadn't experienced any love like that. And as a result of that, I didn't know any better as well. Like, so with where I was at, that's all I knew too.
That's cool, man. Let's get back to, I guess we're at the point where you wouldn't change it for the world, even though there was pain and heartbreak. Just keep going from there, bro.
Yeah, so I got slapped in the face with and this is the first time I've talked about this publicly. She's given me permission. I'm not going to give too much details, but it turned out that she'd been having dreams about a good friend of mine for a couple of years, and she had so much shame about it. And this is the first point, and like she in her dreams she had feelings towards him, and she didn't have these feelings towards me anymore. And she told me that. I'm like, look, you need to listen to your heart. It's not up to me to decide for you what your heart wants. And that was a really raw expression of her mind making her wrong for feeling a certain way. So you know, this is how this story began for me. But in a heartbeat, I was out of a 5-year relationship. And then that made me realize all these realizations of, oh God, I wasn't actually listening to my heart. That's how I got into this mess. And then that made me begin to look at all areas of my life and ask the question, is this a fuck yes for me? Is this a fuck yes for me? Because when something feels like a fuck yes, that's my heart, my soul, my essence being like, go get it, man. That's awesome, you know? And I don't need an explanation for that. So, like, for example, if someone invites you to an event and you're only going out of obligation, that's not a fuck yes, you know? If you're going there because you really want to be there and you love the people there, that's a fuck yes. And I was at my current job at the time, and you know, I was really good at what I did as a personal trainer. And I was sitting there at work, and I'm like, "Is this a fuck yes?" No. So I ended up quitting my job like that. And at the same time, I had to move out from my partner. So everything in my life changed, but I trusted it all, and I went with it all because it felt true. And obviously, I was in a lot of grief because of the situation. But the mantra that I said earlier is keep my heart open, even if it hurts, because we're supposed to feel all things. I didn't want to cut myself off from feedback anymore. So I allowed myself to feel the depth of the grief, because that was another form of me appreciating the love that we had. I allowed myself for the unworthiness and all those feelings to come up as well, because how was I supposed to move forward if I was numbing all those things? So I committed to trusting my heart no matter how much it hurt, because that's the real only true feedback mechanism I had. And up until that point, I wasn't honoring it enough. And that's what got me into that mess to begin with.
I love that. So if we go back to, I guess, your ex partner having the courage to, and by God,
Mm-hmm.
that takes a lot of courage to say
Mm-hmm.
that when you live together, let alone anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear that, how are you in such a place of empathy and compassion that the response is initially, okay, you need to follow your heart and not shame yourself for this? Because I don't see that happening. Well, I don't assume that's going to happen with a lot of men who are so invested in their relationship that they have this sense of codependency and this identity being in that relationship.
Yeah, I think love is not possession. Like that's the number one thing. Love is not, she's not my possession. Love is like, okay, our two souls want to dance for a period of time. Like while that feels true, let's go. I'm so grateful for that time. If that time is over, that's above my pay grade. I don't get to decide. I don't want to cling to something that no longer serves me. Just like me outgrowing personal training. I can't force myself to love it anymore. You know, we grow, we evolve, and things change. And the way I live, and I was trying to live to the best of my ability, and I'm still trying to do, is to honor my heart as much as I can. So how can I not ask for her to do the same thing? How can I not do that? So, although my worth was attached to her in so many ways and it was unhealthy, above all things, I loved her. And that's my expression of love for someone, is for them to be them. It's not for me. Like I always talk about this analogy. Imagine if there's a ballet dancer on stage and she's so beautiful and you rip her off the stage and you're like, come hang out with me. That was you admiring her on stage is love. You taking her off is possession. And the way that I love is I never want to take people out of their way. I want to see, do our ways intersect. You know, the whole saying, go out of your way for someone, implies that, you know, in Taoism, you have the way, your way. And if you're going out of your way, you're actually losing yourself for someone. So I never want anyone to do that. And especially in the most intense situations, those rules apply the most. Like that, for me, that's the best way to navigate it.
I love that. Was there a sense of relief? Like, was that an aha moment for you to go, oh, actually, shit, I haven't been living in alignment. I have been clinging on to this and trying to force something rather than flowing with what's meant to happen. Did that help that situation?
Massively. A few things help, like no feelings of someone that was already filling up her heart allowed me to close that door really quickly instead of holding on to it in my mind, like what could be, what if. I'm like, okay, done, let's go. And then I saw her, you know, a week, because we're best friends and we still are best friends, and it's really beautiful and I'm so grateful for that. But you know, we saw each other a week later, 2 weeks later, and that love of connection was never fucking there, but we'll try to make it work, right? So just being present to how that felt helped a lot. But man, it was the most interesting experience of my life because I had the most relief ever. It was like I was like a bipolar person. I'd go from grieving deeply in the morning to get up and feeling like the most alpha male on the planet because I'm like, let's go. The whole world is my oyster, you know, because so much of my energy was tied into living this lie, and that was consuming me being something that I wasn't. And now that that was free, it was all coming back to me. So it was a really interesting experience, and to navigate it without numbing made me learn so much from it, you know. And I still have that sense of freedom now, and I have entered into another relationship and made sure that I didn't lose myself this time around. So I've learned from the last one, which is beautiful.
Yay! I think you just touched on it there, that you entered into another relationship, but you really gave yourself space and time, like you said, space to grieve, space to feel, space to drop into the heart, because that's not a place you were coming from or delving into on that emotional level and listening to what was coming up. How did you cultivate that ability or that capacity to go from a level of the mind and get back into the body so that you could feel?
Great question. You're killing it. You're killing it. Projector up in here. So first of all, I'm very blessed that I've had some experiences with somatic therapy, so breath work and those kind of things. And actually a conversation with Jake Loretto. For those of you who don't know Jake, he's an incredible biodynamic breathwork practitioner, and he shared me his story of going from near suicidal to healing his life through breathwork. And I've been doing breathwork with facilitators, but he's like, bro, I just did self breathwork every day until I healed myself. I did it for like 60 days or 90 days or something. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, okay, let's go. So I just started self breathworking like every day, putting on music, creating a safe space for myself, and just letting stuff come up. And it's gotten to the point now, and actually been reading a book called Eastern Body, Western Mind that goes into the chakra system. And I don't want to go too far down that road unless you want to, but one of their explanations, and you can look at this through the lens of psychology or spirituality, however you want to look at it. I don't hold too much onto the dogma. I just look at what works as a tool. But when they're talking about the root chakra, it's all about trusting the wisdom of your body and feeling safe in your body. And they talk about the root chakra as being the container of emotions. So I really worked on the mantra of trusting the wisdom of my body. And I know that animals, when traumatized, they know how to let go of it without thought. So I let go of my mind, and I'm like, okay, you're not warranted here. You don't know how to process emotions. You're only going to get in the way. I'm going to give myself the space and permission to go into my body. And I just continue to do that. Now I don't even need to do breath work. If I have something coming up, I can just like put music on, not even put music on. My body starts shaking and wailing. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is intense. Like people would think I'm weird, but it just works. And I trust my body so much from this whole process.
That's so cool. You've almost, no, you haven't almost, you've created an anchor, like just like a public speaker would have their Tony Robbins pump up anchor, listening to music. Yeah, fucking state change. Yeah, I'm about to go out and speak. I'm about to crush it. You've got that with emotional release or processing, which is really, really cool, man. That in itself is a really cool system or process. Um,
It
so,
is. I'm so
yeah.
grateful I have it because like I've been through such a deep, intense healing journey from this whole experience. And when I feel stuff coming up in moments, like I can even allow it to come up like with my new partner, even in intimacy. Before I would see sex as something where I needed to perform and be a certain way, and because of how unhealthy the relationship was. And now I'm like, whatever needs to come up comes up, and everything is a safe container for me just to be authentic. So we could be having incredible sex. Next minute, shame's coming up. Next minute, I'm crying, you know. But now that I've gotten out of the way of those things, in the past I would have suppressed them, like they're not warranted here. But that was actually the situation that I needed to be in for them to come up, for me to heal them, for me to become aware of them and to heal them. And now I'm not caring about whether it's warranted or not. I'm allowing stuff to occur more spontaneously and just trusting my heart to remain open in that process. And that has liberated me and healed me to be more free spirited, far more than anything else. So it's been magical.
Cool. You said trust there, and I wanted to go back to that space where you made the decision or collectively made that decision to end that relationship, at the same time leave the place that you were living, leave the home, and then at the same time also leave your job. How or what was that process like for you, for I guess trusting and surrendering? Because for a lot of men, with the men that we coach and the men that we talk to, control is a huge thing to let go of, because
Mm-hmm.
for men, when they think of letting go of control of their life, they feel like they don't have it all together. And so
Mm-hmm.
trust and surrender seems to be pretty fucking hard, especially for like masculine men.
Yeah. Well, first thing I want to say to any of those guys that are listening, control is an illusion. You don't get to decide whether someone fucking locks you down because of COVID. You can't control what your partner does. You think you have control to keep yourself safe. So control is a load of shit. And once you actually see through that, you're like, well, why bother controlling things? Because I can't control things. The mind is it's although it seems really intellectual, it's still mimicking very primitive circuits. So the mind is trying to do its best to keep us safe. So it's like, if I can make sense of everything and everything fits, then I'm safe. Okay. But it's no different to us not wanting to jump off a cliff. It's still just a primitive thing to try and keep us safe. So once you realize the nature of the mind is always to try and control things to keep things safe, that doesn't always necessarily serve me. So, if I'm always in my comfort zone and keeping things the same and safe, am I going to grow? No, I'm going to be defensive. I'm going to stay small. So I've realized all that already and learned all of that and know that it doesn't serve me. But trust is a really powerful thing because I trust myself. No one else can do the healing for me. No one else, like, even if I have all the best teachers, it's only up to me to trust myself, to trust them, to do the work, to embody it, and to grow through it. So throughout that whole process, no matter what, I would put a hand on my heart. No matter if I felt like trash, I felt disconnected, I would put a hand on my heart. I got you, man. That's what trust is for me. It's not even necessarily trusting something beyond yourself, because I feel like a lot of religions, specifically Catholicism, is like, trust in a higher power, trust in us. Fuck that. That's cool, guys, but trust yourself. Stop putting some trust in this man right here. Like, no matter what happens, I got you, bro. So, like, that for me is a far more practical way to engage in trust. And it was so beautiful to go through such a painful experience because it really showed me how much I trusted myself. And I felt like I had no other choice. I listened to my heart. It's like, this is a no. I'm like, well, let's go find a fuck yeah. Like, for me, now that I have learned to understand emotions, it's a no brainer because they know what's best for me. They've never failed me. If I'm sad, it's because something's not serving me. If I'm angry, someone's crossing my boundaries. If it feels good, I like it. What more is there to explain than that? Than trying to chunk it all like a fucking machine up here? It doesn't work. It's a lot of shit, guys. It's a tool, and you can use the mind constructively, and we can talk more about that later. But it's not the primary way for us to understand ourselves in reality.
So I think it was maybe this time last year, a little bit later last year. I remember meeting with you, and like I had so much, still do, had so much respect and love for you as a man, but also as a man who I saw as a leader. And in that position, I don't feel like there was a level of trust in yourself then. How did that paradigm sort of shift so that you could, not just trust in leaving your job to become this leader, this coach, this man of influence, but also leave or detach from the rest of it? Because that's a massive shift.
Mm. Yeah, I was honest. I'm always doing the best with what I can see and understand at that time. So I always trust myself to the level that I've met myself and to the level that life has mirrored back to me where I'm at. So obviously, when I got mirrored some hectic stuff to myself, I had a choice. Do I trust myself further or do I wither away and hurt? So these really painful experiences have let me become so much more powerful and strong as a man because I didn't really feel like I had a choice. I either grow and gain so much more trust in myself that I have to, or suffer. So that's kind of like an ongoing journey for me as things become more vulnerable and as life becomes more intense and as I meet myself more, I'm always given that choice. And for me, it's like, well, let's go deeper. So that's kind of the process that I continually do. So I can only trust myself as much as I've met myself. And that's why I try to be as authentic as possible because that's just who I am in that moment. And I'll look back a year later and that guy is going to be, a shadow of who I am now. But fuck, that guy made me who I am now. Thank you to that guy. I can't expect him to be more than what he was, and I can't expect myself to be more than what I was. So I may as well trust what I got now. Like this is me right now. I may as well learn to embrace it.
So it's really just like having to face off with parts of you that created that. Like I either
Yeah.
trust myself or I don't, and I keep going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and when I get exposed with the reality, like in that relationship, I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't trusting myself to make big decisions, but I was unaware of that. I wasn't allowing myself to receive love. I was overgiving. All of these things got thrown in my face, and this, we have two choices. We can deny it and get defensive and bottle it down and numb it, or we can accept it and grow through it. And I always prefer the latter because I'm a free spirited growth junkie. So I'm like, let's go. That's what I'm saying, let's go. I do some coaching with this guy who does emotional coaching with me, and he's like, how do you feel about that? I'm like, let's go. I can't really give a word of the emotion, but let's dance, let's boogie. And Preston Smiles said, when the music changes, change the way that you dance. So when life changes its tune, you match your dance moves to the tune. And instead of resisting what is, can you embrace it and rise with it? Is how I like to operate. So I was very blessed, and I'm so grateful for those really fucked up experiences, because like moving through them consciously has been so powerful. And most people have so much shit they need to change in their lives, but they're too fucking scared of the consequences. But if you just do it, it's the best thing that ever happens. I know it's scary, I know it's going to hurt a lot. Guys, life's going to hurt a lot. So you may as well embrace it in a way that's going to make you grow.
I guess when we're talking about trust, right, and we're talking about the mind versus the heart or the body, you can't come from a level of trust from the mind, because the mind is analytical and it's logical. So, like you said, it's trying to piece things together to make sure that you're safe. Whereas intuitively, and I believe we are emotional, intuitive beings, when you drop into the body or the heart, that's where you follow that gut instinct, that intuition, that is generally in alignment. So, for you, how have you built on that ability to drop in so that you're not making decisions or showing up from the mind? Because I think that's a hard one for a lot of people. They think about dropping into the body, but it's quite scary to go from a place that you're comfortable with, being always in the mind and having that chatter, and then to feeling something in your body, because a lot of us are used to avoiding nearly everything that we feel through coping mechanisms. So how have you built that capacity?
Very good question. Love your questions, man. Killing it, by the way. Killing it. Big flex for Lockie.
Let's go.
Spilling it. Got 2 dicks here. No,
Yeah.
Let's go, boys. Don't cut that out. Keep it raw. All right, let me find the question again. Okay. Dropping back into the body, right? So just to preface, so this makes a bit more sense. The reason we retreat away from the body is because we live in a very emotionally phobic society. And I say emotionally phobic because collectively, emotions are seen as weakness, and how can we fix them as quickly as possible so we can get on with things? Give the kid a lollipop, give someone antidepressants. We're not taught like that is a deep feedback mechanism from your body and your spirit, and it's gonna fucking hurt, but that's what you need to feel. No one ever has said that to me ever until I started getting into life coaching and understanding emotions and trauma and whatnot, right? So what happens is we have a shit ton of suppressed emotions existing in our body. So what's our natural response to that? Stay away from them, stay up here. Because this is controllable, this is dry, this is nowhere near as visceral. Emotions are intense. Emotions can compel us to do things that we feel ashamed of, that we can hurt people. They're very intense. So of course we're going to distance ourselves from them. So if you're doing that, guys, don't have shame. But to get back into the body, we need to give ourselves the permission to understand that it's not going to be pretty at first. It's not like, I'm just going to reconnect to my heart. Now I'm going to manifest everything that I want. And no, that's a load of shit. When you get back in your body, you're going to be like, oh my God, there's years of grief, sadness, and hurt because I have not been honoring myself a bit. And that sucks. But that's the only way for you to reform your relationship with yourself. Until you actually are willing to meet yourself with where you're at. And if you have been living from your head, you have been neglecting your own needs of your heart and your emotional body, regardless of what you've been doing, because you've been running on someone else's script. You've been doing what you think you should do, which is being fed to you by someone else. So once you actually reconnect, there's going to be hurt there. Can you actually accept that without judging it, without trying to fix it and lollipop it and band-aid it? Can you give yourself permission to feel all spectrums of emotions without making them wrong? That's the first step. Until you give yourself permission, you're not going anywhere. Then you have to use embodiment practices, and they can vary. Like the most simple one, like I was reading a book on sexual trauma, and this shows up in Qigong as well. And this other movement practitioner is just percussion, just tapping parts of your body, because your body, your entire body is a container for feeling, right? You can feel it in fingers, toes, everywhere. Tapping this part of your body and saying, this is my forearm, and feeling into the space in your forearm. This is this. Just whatever you can do. It doesn't have to be rocket science to bring more conscious awareness into your body is the first step. And then to be okay with whatever's there. Because a lot of people, you bring your attention to your heart, it's not love, guys. That's deep, deep, deep sadness, rejection, hurt, shame. That stuff's going to live there. Can you give yourself permission to be with that? Be that. It's simply allowing yourself to feel it, full stop. You're not trying to get somewhere. You're not trying to analyze it and make sense of it. You're just witnessing, experiencing the feeling, which is really intense, but there's no shortcut around it. You have to just become comfortable with it. And I trained myself over a series of 2 years. I would lay there numb, feel this little bit of thing in my heart, And what happens is when we're numb, we have all our own reflexes, our numbing mechanisms. So for me, I'll start to feel something and I'll drop it into my head. I'll start to feel something, drop it into my head. Start to feel something, want to reach for my phone. Do you know what I mean? So we have to observe the mechanisms and notice those, because the more awareness we have around those, the more like, oh, that's me running away from feeling again. Okay, I need to give myself permission to feel. Why do I want to feel again? Because I want deeper relationships. I want to create a life that feels congruent with me. We need to remember why, because if your why is not bigger than the pain, you're not going to do it. And there's going to be so much pain in there. So once you develop that desire, notice the mechanisms, then it's just simple practices of breathing, percussion, movement, dance, working with a somatic practitioner, whatever it is, as long as you're moving your body and just genuinely just trying to more awareness into your body.
So you mentioned why. What's your why, bro?
I just want to feel alive. Like I was numb for so long. Like I can go into so much detail of like wanting to give my gifts to the world and wanting to share love. But at the end of the day, I just want to experience life by feeling alive. And I was so numb for so long. And that fucking hurt to live like that. Like, although being numb doesn't sound like it hurts knowing that I wasn't experiencing life to its fullest. It hurts knowing that I could have given more love in that moment or received more love in that moment. It hurts knowing I missed out on fully experiencing life. So for me, my biggest why is just being alive moment to moment. Then obviously, the more connected I am to myself, the more able I am to liberate other people from bullshit. They feel my energy and they see the person that I am. Like, I want some of that. I want to be weird like this dude. Or they're like, that guy's fucking weird. Regardless, I'm a bit of a pattern interrupt for people. And the more that I live from myself, like the analogy I use when most people have only lived in their head their whole life, it's like living in black and white. And I'm trying to inject color into people's lives. Like, whoa, that's some that's some good color, like, uh-huh. So the more I unnumb, the more color I have, and the more I can share that with my soul homies and the people who are willing to receive that. And it's just great living like that, to be honest. Like, sex, hanging out with friends, playing games, whatever it is, I get more flow, I get more joy. It's awesome.
I love that, man. Um, you spoke about like the way you trust yourself is by meeting yourself in those places, and you spoke about unworthiness coming up. Now, we both know that feeling unworthy is a huge thing for men in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even just last night, I had two back-to-back calls with men who had this deep level of um, not being enough,
Mm-hmm.
for their parents, for their partners, for their kids, whatever. How did you work, or how did you approach that, and then how did you work through that? Because that's a huge issue at the moment for the
Mm.
men that are showing up, and at least in my network.
Yeah, it's a deep thing because there's layers to it, and I guess I'll start with accepting that like a lot of unworthiness is beliefs we've formed. So you have the mind and the body and everything, right? So we have experiences that literally make us feel unworthy, and that gets programmed into our nervous system as a feeling. And on the body level, we have to go into those feelings, and I don't know if a lot of guys know about inner child healing, but as a child, we have very specific human needs, and the way that most parents are, it's not their fault, but they were parented through punishment, reward conditioning, conditional love, sometimes through shaming, and parents being stressed and using spanking. I'm not a parent, but these things end up making most people feel unworthy to some degree, and we carry this from early childhood through life, right? So part of the healing is to go back and to meet those parts of yourself. How do you do that? You can listen to some inner child meditations. There's so many free ones. There's an app called Insight Timer where you can do that. And it guides you back to experiencing those emotions, and then you can like cry them out, or you can imagine holding that part of yourself and telling that part of yourself you're worthy. But you have to meet the parts of yourself that were made to feel they're not lovable and give them love. So genuinely, you can do it right now. It's easy to say right now, but genuinely, there's a lot of deep stuff that needs to be dealt with. Then I guess on a more practical level is looking at how you're talking to yourself in your head. Like, stop talking to yourself like you're a piece of shit. Stop believing that nonsense and decide how you want to talk to yourself. And this is also called the reparenting process. Like, how would an awesome, loving parent talk to their children? Because we inherit the voice of every authority, bully, parent, blah, 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 through our lives. And that becomes this shaming, snarky voice of trying to make us feel like we need to be more. Of course, we're never going to feel good enough if that voice is always there saying, you did this wrong with this. But let's say I do fuck up and I genuinely fucked up. It's good to own that. Don't shame myself. Then what would I want that voice to sound like? Joel, you fucked up. How did you go wrong? You got this. Let's move forward from here. How can you create a different way of speaking to yourself in your mind that encourages you to feel more self-love for yourself? And then I think we need to make promises to ourselves as men. It's very important that we actually develop some integrity. Because if you don't have trust for yourself, if you can't make a promise to yourself and do it on a day, of course you're going to feel very wishy-washy. But you have to understand your promise might be this big, someone else's might be this big. You have to understand where you're at. Your promise might just be to brush your teeth that day. I don't know where you're at, to get out of bed and make your bed. Can you start to make promises to yourself to build that sense of self-esteem back and resurface your self-image, which is how you see yourself? Your self-image is a little different to your self-worth, but they kind of tie in. Is that too vague, too specific?
No, no, I love that. And I think making that promise to yourself is ultimately just cultivating or creating trust, right? Trust
100%.
within
I
yourself.
said it and I did it, and that felt incredible. That means I can do a little bit more. I don't have to be like, no, I'm going to go make $1 million. Then I fail and I feel like a piece of shit. No, be realistic. Okay, this is where I'm at. I can accept that and see that wholly. Not think I need to be more or think I'm less. Just be very objective where we're at in our fucking reality, because most people have inflated or deflated perspectives of themselves. So through this promising process, you might realize that you're under promising or over promising. That'll calibrate over time until you actually know where you're at. And then just accept that's where you're at and build from there. Just get to know yourself.
Yeah. And I love that because when you're in a place of not feeling enough, not feeling worthy, what tends to come up is self sabotage, like
Mm-hmm.
either through not honoring yourself or like over promising to
Mm-hmm.
yourself, saying, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do X and committing to way too much so that you
Mm-hmm.
fail. And then you can beat yourself up again and then justify why you feel, why you feel
Yep.
unworthy.
And that's really fucking sad, and it's a real trap. Instead of being like, okay, I love the notion of pride. I used to be kind of anti-pride, like, because I saw pride and arrogance tied together a lot, and we live in Australia, and it's all about humility and tall poppy syndrome. So I didn't have a good relationship with pride, but I think it's freaking incredible for us to have pride in ourselves. So if you make a promise, even if it's for one day, but you did that, bro, that means you can do that again. Have some pride in your actions, because a lot of men have lost their sense of pride. They've become so wishy-washy. Their word doesn't mean anything. They don't care how they show up in the world. And pride from a good place is a really powerful thing. Like actually having pride. Like imagine if we had incredible male mentors growing up who were genuinely proud of the young men that we'll be. I know that would impact my life. And I was continually seeking that because I didn't get it. And now I can finally give it to myself, and it's incredible.
I love that. And I think pride's a huge one. And then to lump on top of that, to be able to really cultivate healthy pride in yourself and not come from the mind or ego or needing to wear this mask of pride so that you get
Mm-hmm.
recognition or you're perceived a certain
Mm-hmm.
way. You have to learn how to like genuinely celebrate yourself. Like, what's
Just
your
for you.
relationship with celebration or self celebration?
The moment that you notice your mind doing something for someone else, you're likely trying to earn worth. The moment that you're trying to seek something outside of yourself, there's a part of yourself that isn't feeling worthy, and that part of yourself needs more love and attention. That's like as soon as we go external, we're trying to earn something, you know? Yeah, it's great to do things externally, but when you're like, I'm doing this so that they see me differently, you're getting caught up in a world of uncontrollables. You can't control how people see you. You can control being authentic. If you want to talk about control, we can decide to be more authentic, even if it hurts. We can. And we need to find the arenas where we do have control and dance there, not dance in the realm of, oh, does she like me? Or does he? They may or they may not, but just be yourself and see what happens. That's all you can do. You don't actually, or you can put on a mask and try and make them like you. They don't even like the real you. So what are you fucking doing it for? It's another load of shit. Like we need to get out of the bullshit and get into reality. And people pleasing, losing yourself, going out of your own way to try and earn love instead of just giving yourself love is bullshit.
So how do you celebrate yourself when you've done something really good, or you've really honored yourself by showing up for yourself, and meeting that commitment or meeting that self promise? How do
Mm.
you celebrate or acknowledge yourself?
Big part of it is the thing in itself is the celebration of for me, because by choosing to do behaviors that serve me, that is me honoring myself, which is me celebrating myself. So I'm not like a child who needs a reward. Oh, Joel, you did your practice. Good stuff, man. I did the practice. It makes me feel good. Like I did the practice. I'm connecting to myself in the process. So just doing the things that are a reflection of me are the celebration. Yes, sometimes I tick off my habit and I make sure I'm like, yeah, I ticked off the habit. But at the end of the day, like if you're living a life that doesn't feel good, that's not a celebration. If you're actually choosing to fill your time with things that feel incredible for you, what better way to celebrate yourself than living true to yourself?
That's a good answer. That's not one that I was expecting to have fired back. So, thank you, man. I think we'll probably wrap this up because no doubt we'll end up doing another one in a couple
All
of
right,
weeks or a
spit some
month or
bars,
something.
Lockie. We'll do some raps. You spit. Give me a beat.
No.
You know what? I was gonna rap. I was gonna freestyle. You go the beats. I'll go the rap. Let's go. Is this too much for you? Let's send it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I was keen. I'll cut it there. I'll cut it there. I need to have instrumentals. All right, I got my instrumentals. Let's go now.
Fuck, I love you. I guess for anyone who like resonates with what you're saying, resonates with the way that you're showing up, what are your current offerings? What are you helping people through? And where can people find you?
So Joel Stoianis, you're gonna have to. They're gonna see the title, right? Most people can't spell that. I don't have to spell that right now, do I?
No.
Okay, cool. Find me on my personal Facebook. Just add me on my personal Facebook. But like, try and talk to me. I rant about people being voyeurs on social media. They just look and they don't touch. They just step back. Like, interact. Like man, like that's how I got to know you. It's such a beautiful, powerful platform if you actually use it. So if you add me, talk to me. Don't be a stranger. Cool, read my stuff, but comment as well. Like, prefer to have people who interact because you guys get more from it, and I get to know you instead of just being like, oh, I've got to follow. So on both Instagram and Facebook, just writing my name. My primary offering at the moment is my 10-week course for men called Step Into Manhood, and that is my baby. And I'm putting most of my energy into that because I want to get that to a point where I'm like, that's fucking world class, and that's doing incredible, and it's already doing really incredible. But I want to go through one more audit of that so it's top notch, and that's my main baby. I am taking on one-on-one clients at the moment. I don't have a massive structure around it because that's not where my energy is going. But if someone feels connected to me and I feel like I could be of service of them, reach out. I'm very much like, I trust my heart. So if it feels good and it feels right, we'll make it work. But I'm not like proactively like, this is my current offering with one-on-one. But I'm not averse to it. And I love doing one-on-ones, and I do a lot of different embodiment practices, guided meditations, helping you understand your own mechanisms to get out of your own way. Keeping you accountable as well. I go through a whole variety of things to help you get out of your own way because you have your own guidance. I'm just directing you back to your own guidance. So the 10-week course for men is just for guys who want to either get their shit together, they're low, they need the tools to get their shit together, they're being supported by good men, or it's for guys who have like one or two areas of their life together. You might be crushing in business and fitness, or your relationships are lacking. There's always, like, most guys are only one or two dimensional, and there's a lot more to it than that. So just because you're cruising or you're going well doesn't mean you can't do men's work. So my course is it's a deep dive, it's intense, it's heavily transformative, and it's a combination of mind, of showing up in the world because men need to do that, and of deep embodiment practices to clear emotions to get you to know yourself. So it's fire, it's magic. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I love that, bro. I think I'm happy with that. Could you let's wrap up with what you're grateful for right now, and then I guess some words of wisdom or anything you want to add.
Okay, yeah, some generic. I was gonna do that through my rap, but you didn't beatbox for me, so bit of public shame there. Shame him, guys.
Yeah.
He didn't beatbox. Fuck this guy. You just start rapping now. I'm super grateful for you supporting me to get me onto more podcasts. Like that's alive in my heart at the moment. I had so much response and in conversation with several people, and I want to speak more, and I want to give my gifts to the world. And this feels like my jam. Like, I talked to my housemate Theo. His jam is his healing hands. My jam is my spoken word. I love to help people access deeper states of consciousness or get into different emotional states through words. And our mind, it's an interface. And if I use the right tone and the right energy and the right words, I can take people on a journey without them even really needing to do much. And I love learning to do that more and being able to do that. So fucking grateful for my own voice, but grateful for people like you who trust me and allow me to do my thing in the world. So, and just feeling the support from that. So massive gratitude for that. Wisdom, guys, you need to be aware of how you're deceiving yourself. Self-deception is the killer of us becoming our true self. And it could be so subtle. We don't want to admit where we're going wrong. We're trying to make that we're better than we're not, or we don't want to show people where we're struggling. All these little forms of deception up to us weaving this massive fabric of lies that keeps us small. And often we don't want to take that net of lies away because we're too scared of what lies beneath. But what lies beneath is the truth. And until you start operating in the realm of truth and be honest with yourself, nothing is going to change. Bullshit is bullshit. Truth is truth. Do yourself a favor and stop bullshitting yourself and start to face the facts of reality. I use the analogy, get on the scales. Get on the scales of life. Like, it doesn't lie. It doesn't mean you need to make meaning from it. But if you want to make more money and your bank account doesn't say that, it's being honest with you. If you want to lose weight in the scale, it's being honest with you. If you don't have love and your relationships are all toxic, life is being honest with you. Life is always going to mirror to you back where you're at. Look at it very frankly. Don't lie to yourself. And that's the entry point to creating true change in your life.
I love it, man. Thank you for taking time for this. Thank you for the gratitude. Oh, juicy. Yeah, man, I'm very grateful to have you in my life. You've been such a beautiful influence, especially in regards to tapping back into being who I feel I am at my core, like as the little boy Lachlan who was goofy and outgoing and playful, who had been tossed aside or put in the wardrobe so that I could become what I felt like I needed to become to, feel worthy. So I'm very grateful for you showing up in my life and you showing up how you do, because that's definitely allowed me to tap back into that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And guys, like our nature, someone's essence might be really stoic and serious. Someone's essence might be silly. We're all different, So it's not comparing, like, we're all so individual. It's not comparing what your unique self looks like. It's just learning to embrace it because you have no choice. You don't have a choice at the end of the day. You either live in disconnection, reconnect, and embrace whatever's there. So I've had to embrace this crazy guy, guys. If I can embrace this guy, then you guys can embrace who you are as well. And that's why I don't mind being the craziest person in the room, because it's like a permission slip for other people to realize that it's okay for them to get out of their shells too. Because I don't know, no one's openly judging me. They're probably on their heads, but I give a fuck regardless. You know what I mean? So why not have some more fun and let loose?
I love it, bro. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ciao.